7. He stabbed me 7 times. Not in a frenzy, not in rage. Each one was deliberate, measured, like he was counting. Thaddeus, my colleague, my friend, the man I'd trusted with my apartment key, my emergency contact, my Wednesday night takeout orders for 2 years. He pressed the blade into me like I was a problem he was solving. But that wasn't the worst part. Before the knife, his hands were everywhere, tearing through my drawers, ripping open my laptop bag, dumping files across the floor. Where is it, Samantha? The ledger, the access codes, where? I didn't know what he was talking about. I told him that. He stabbed me anyway. He left me on my kitchen floor, bleeding out, alone. My phone, cracked screen, 3% battery, was 2 feet away. I crawled for it. Every inch was a universe of pain. I tried to text my sister a goodbye. My fingers were slick with blood, shaking so badly I could barely type. He found me. I'm sorry. Send. I waited to die. Then the phone buzzed. An unknown number. 5 words that burned through my fading vision. Tell me where you are. Then, seconds later, what did Thaddeus take from you? I didn't know this number. I hadn't texted my sister. I'd sent my dying words to a complete stranger, a stranger who knew Thaddeus by name. This wasn't a rescuer. This wasn't a coincidence. This was Arthur. And the nightmare I was trying to escape, it was about to swallow me whole. If this story already has you hooked, hit that like button right now. It helps more people find stories like this, and trust me, you're gonna want to see where this goes.
I should have died. The doctors, if you could call them that, working in a private medical suite with no windows and no paperwork, told me later that the 7th wound had nicked something important. Another 20 minutes, and my kitchen floor would have been my grave. But someone got there in 15. I didn't see the rescue. I was already gone by then, fading into a darkness that felt almost peaceful compared to Thaddeus's hands and the cold, wet rhythm of my own blood pooling beneath me. What I remember is waking up. Silk sheets, sterile air, the hum of expensive ventilation, a room that looked like a luxury hotel designed by someone who'd never felt joy, clean lines, muted colors, a window showing nothing but a distant skyline, beautiful, empty, a cage with a thread count. A woman named Aisha was adjusting an IV beside my bed, dark hair, sharp eyes, fingers that moved with surgical precision. She looked at me the way a mechanic looks at a car on a lift, clinically interested. "You're safe here," she said. "Where is here?" She didn't answer that. Instead, "He'll want to speak with you when you're ready." "Who?" The door opened before she could reply, and the air in the room changed. Not metaphorically. I swear the temperature dropped. The man who entered the room didn't walk into a room. He occupied it. Tall, broad-shouldered, a face carved from something harder than bone. His eyes found me instantly, and I understood, with the certainty of prey, that this man had never looked at anything without calculating its value. Arthur. He didn't ask how I felt. He didn't introduce himself. He stood at the foot of my bed, hands in his pockets, and said, "What does Thaddeus want with you?" "I don't know." My voice was a rasp. "Wrong answer. It's the only one I have." He studied me for a long moment. Then, "Dr. Thorne, you're a data analyst at Hargrove and Sattler. You've worked there for 8 months. In that time, you've had access to systems that you believe process corporate financial data." A pause, deliberate. "They don't. Hargrove and Sattler has laundered information for my organization for over a decade, and Thaddeus, who works for a man named Leonard, my most ambitious rival, believed you had stumbled onto something in that data, something that could destroy me. The room tilted. I'm a data analyst. I make spreadsheets. You make connections, his voice cold. Your supervisor's reports note your uncanny ability to identify anomalies. You flagged 17 irregularities in the past 4 months that no algorithm caught. You didn't know what you were looking at, but Thaddeus did. The realization hit like the 8th stab wound. I was never random. I was never safe. My ordinary life had been a thin skin stretched over a world I couldn't see, and Thaddeus had cut right through it. Arthur turned toward the door. "Get some rest, Dr. Thorne. Tomorrow you start earning the life I just saved." The door closed. I stared at the ceiling. Earning it, not a gift, a transaction. I'd been rescued by a man who saw people as assets, and right now, I was his. But here's the thing about being someone's asset. It means you have value, and value, I was starting to realize, is its own kind of power.
The next day, Aisha showed me what I'd been too blind, or too ordinary, to see. She pulled up my work files on a screen so large it covered an entire wall. My reports, my flagged anomalies, the 17 irregularities I'd noted, highlighted in red. And then she showed me the layer beneath, the real data flowing through Hargrove and Sattler's servers. Financial transactions, coded communications, logistical coordinates, the nervous system of Arthur's empire. "This," Aisha said, pointing to a cluster of anomalies I'd flagged 3 months ago, "was Leonard's first attempt to infiltrate the network. You spotted it before our own security systems did." I thought it was a formatting error. It was a probe. And this, she swiped to another cluster, was his second attempt, more sophisticated, deeper. "He's not trying to steal data, Samantha. He's trying to rewrite it. Change financial records, reroute assets, make Arthur's own ledger lie to him. By the time anyone notices, Leonard owns everything, and Arthur is holding a fiction." My stomach dropped. And Thaddeus thought I could give him access to the original, the real version? Aisha hesitated. "Not exactly. Your mind doesn't just spot errors, it maps patterns. The anomalies you flagged, you didn't just see that something was wrong. You remembered the exact data points, the timestamps, the relationships between entries. You're carrying a mental map of every discrepancy in the system. To someone like Leonard, that map is a skeleton key." I understood then why Thaddeus hadn't just stolen my laptop. The data he needed wasn't on any hard drive. It was in my head, locked in the connections my brain had made without my permission. He'd tried to beat it out of me. When that failed, he'd decided I was more useful dead than difficult. Arthur appeared in the doorway. I was starting to recognize the way he entered rooms, silently, like a predator testing the air. "Leonard is planning something larger," he said. "A single, decisive strike during a data migration at Dementra Financial next week. He'll use the chaos of the system transfer to overwrite my ledger permanently. After that, my entire network becomes his puppet, and I become a ghost." "So stop the migration." "I can't. It's a legitimate corporate process involving a dozen regulatory bodies. Canceling it raises questions I can't afford." His eyes locked onto mine. "You can see the exact moment Leonard's alterations enter the data stream. You can identify the pattern of his tampering in real time, could catch him in the act, expose the fraud before it takes root." The silence stretched between us. I knew what he was asking.
You want me to go in there." "I want you to choose to go in there," he said. Something flickered across his face. Not quite concern, but an acknowledgement that this was more than a chess move. "I won't force you, Samantha, but I won't lie to you either. You're the only person alive who can do this." I thought about my kitchen floor, the blood, the cold, Thaddeus's dead eyes as he drove the knife in for the 7th time. I thought about the text I'd sent to the wrong number, the accident that had dragged me into this world, and I thought about the fact that going back to my old life was no longer an option. That woman was gone, bled out on linoleum. "I'll do it, but not for you, for me. He stabbed me 7 times, Arthur. I owe him 7 answers." Something shifted in Arthur's expression, a crack in the glacier. "Then we plan."
The night before the operation, I couldn't sleep. I found Arthur in the kitchen, if you could call a polished marble slab surrounded by appliances that had never been used a kitchen. He was standing at the window, a glass of something dark in his hand, watching the city like it owed him money. "Why did you answer?" I asked. He didn't turn. "Answer what?" "My text, the wrong number. You could have ignored it. You should have ignored it. A random text on a burner phone from a bleeding stranger, that's not your problem. But you sent a team in 15 minutes. I sat on the cold counter. "Why?" A long silence. Then, "The phone you texted was linked to a network I built to monitor threats. When Thaddeus's name appeared, it became my problem." "That's the strategic answer. I want the real one." His jaw tightened. For a moment I thought he'd leave. Instead, he said, very quietly, "My sister texted me once, when she was in trouble. I didn't answer in time." He finished his drink, set the glass down. "I don't ignore texts anymore." He walked past me, pausing at the door. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be the worst day of your life." "Worse than getting stabbed 7 times?" "Different kind of wound," he said, and left. I sat in the dark kitchen for a long time after that. He'd shown me something real, a fracture in the armor, brief as a blink. I didn't trust him. I couldn't, but I understood him now, and that was more dangerous than trust. We're halfway through and things are about to get intense. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. And go ahead and share this with someone who loves a good thriller. They'll thank you later.
Dementra Financial occupied 40 floors of glass and arrogance in the heart of the financial district. I entered through the service level, dressed as an IT contractor, Aisha's voice steady in my earpiece. Bruce, Arthur's enforcer, a man built like a wall with eyes like a sniper scope, held position in a van outside. Arthur was somewhere in the building. I didn't know where. I didn't need to. I could feel his presence the way you feel a storm before the sky darkens. The data migration was scheduled for 2 a.m. Minimal staff, maximum vulnerability. I was set up in a monitoring room on the 32nd floor, watching the data flow on 6 screens, looking for the pattern I'd been trained to see, the tell. For 2 hours, nothing. Clean data, clean transfers. Then, at 2:47 a.m., I saw it. A flicker, a micro delay in the timestamp of a financial record, 3 milliseconds where the data seemed to stutter like a heartbeat skipping. To any system, to any algorithm, it was invisible, but my mind had mapped this exact signature across 17 anomalies over 4 months. I knew this rhythm. I knew this handwriting. "Leonard." "Now," I said into the comms. My voice was steady. My hands were not. Everything happened at once. Aisha locked down the data pathways. Bruce's team breached the server room 2 floors below. I heard shouting, the crack of a door being taken off its hinges, a strangled curse. And then, on my screens, I watched Leonard fight back. He activated a failsafe, a cascade of corrupted data designed to obliterate Arthur's records entirely. Not a theft anymore, a scorched earth tantrum. If he couldn't own the ledger, he'd burn it. The corruption wave raced toward Arthur's core servers like a lit fuse. "Aisha, he's trying to wipe everything," I shouted. "I see it. I can't block it from here. It's using his own authenticated credentials. The system thinks it's a legitimate command." My eyes raced across the screens, and there it was, in the architecture of Leonard's failsafe, a weakness, a flaw in his own code, an override back door he'd built for himself, a trap door in case he ever needed to reverse his own destruction. He'd been too arrogant to think anyone would find it. But I'd seen it before. 3 months ago, flagged as Anomaly 9 in my reports, a pattern buried so deep that only someone who remembered patterns the way I do would recognize it. I had a choice. I could use the override to simply block the attack, defensive, safe, or I could turn it back on him, use his own authenticated access to drain his accounts, expose his network, send every piece of evidence to every regulatory body on the planet. One option saved Arthur's ledger, the other destroyed Leonard entirely. Thaddeus's face flashed in my mind, the knife, the counting, 7 times. I chose destruction. My fingers moved faster than my conscience. I rerouted Leonard's own failsafe, turned his self-destruct into a confession. Every hidden account, every shell corporation, every bribed official, all of it exposed, transmitted, irrevocable. Somewhere below me, I heard Leonard scream, not in pain, in understanding, the sound of a man watching his empire evaporate in real time. On every screen, the same message blinked in red. Accounts liquidated, records transmitted, process irrevocable. Aisha's voice shaking. "Samantha, what did you do?" I sat back in my chair. My hands had stopped trembling. I chose.
They brought Leonard up in handcuffs that weren't strictly legal. His face was gray. His eyes found me across the room, and what I saw in them wasn't anger. It was fear. He looked at me the way people look at something they don't understand, something that shouldn't exist but does. Arthur appeared beside me. For a long time he said nothing. We stood in the wreckage of Leonard's ambition, dead screens, scattered files, the faint smell of burnt circuitry, and let the silence settle. "You could have just blocked it," he finally said. "Saved the ledger, played defense." "I know. But you didn't." "No." He turned to face me fully. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, for the first time, held something I hadn't seen before. Not control, not calculation, respect. "You crossed a line tonight," he said. "You understand that." "I understand that someone drew a line in my blood on my kitchen floor 7 stab wounds ago. I'm done standing on the side I'm told to stand on." The words hung between us. I meant every syllable. And the terrifying part wasn't that I'd said them, it was that I believed them. "So what now?" he asked. Not a command, a question. Maybe the first real question he'd ever asked me. I thought about it. The old Samantha, the spreadsheet maker, the takeout for one, the woman who thought her biggest problem was a commute and a difficult boss. She would have run, begged to go home, pretended none of this happened. But that woman died on a kitchen floor next to a cracked phone with 3% battery. "Now," I said, "I stop being the person things happened to." Arthur studied me. Then slowly he nodded, not with warmth, not with affection,
with recognition, the way a predator acknowledges another predator. He turned and walked toward the exit, pausing without looking back. "Welcome to the deep end, Dr. Thorne." I watched him go. Then I looked down at my phone, a new one. Arthur's people had provided it. The wrong number was saved in my contacts, the accident that had dragged me from a quiet death into a war I didn't start, a single mistyped digit between goodbye and whatever this was. I pressed and held the contact. The options appeared: edit, delete. I chose edit, changed the name from unknown to 2 words: Second Life. Then I put the phone in my pocket and walked into the dark. 7 stab wounds, 1 wrong number, and the woman who survived both, she wasn't a victim anymore. She was the most dangerous thing in the room, and she was just getting started.